Black begins the sequence by relocating their knight from c4 to a3. This move is a classic example of a knight sortie, targeting White's b1 bishop and putting direct pressure on the queenside. By placing the knight on a3, Black threatens to exchange on b1 or disrupt White's pawn structure. Strategically, it can be a way to undermine White's bishop pair advantage and open lines on the queenside. White responds energetically by sending their queen from f3 to f6. This aggressive move jumps into enemy territory, attacking the f6 pawn and eyeing the g7 pawn behind it. The queen's presence creates immediate tactical threats, such as potential sacrifices or mating ideas involving the black king. This is a textbook example of activating the queen to exploit weaknesses in the opponent's camp. Black neutralizes the threat right away by capturing White's queen with their f-pawn g7 to f6. By giving up the f-pawn for the queen, Black resolves the tactical tension, gets rid of White's most potent attacking piece, and opens the g-file. However, this also leaves Black with doubled f-pawns and a weakened kingside, which could be exploitable later. White's rook now swings from d4 to g4, immediately making use of the newly opened g-file. This is a classic rook lift, moving the rook to an active file where it can threaten the black king and pressurize the pawn structure. The intent is clear. White is looking to harness the g-file for attacking prospects, leveraging Black's kingside weaknesses. Black reacts by tucking their king from j8 to h8. This cautious king move is often seen when there's pressure on the open file. The king steps out of danger and avoids potential discovered checks. Shelter on h8 offers momentary respite, but with the g-file open, the king's safety remains a concern if White can double rooks or intensify pressure. White advances dynamically by jumping their knight from c3 to d5. This centralization is fundamental strategy, placing a knight on a strong outpost where it controls key squares and attacks Black's e7 bishop and c7 square. By occupying d5, White increases the overall activity of their pieces, putting pressure on Black's position. Black counteracts by pushing their e6 pawn to e5. This is both a defensive and offensive move, aiming to drive back White's centralized knight and open up new lines for their own bishop and queen. The pawn advance challenges White's control of the center and tries to alleviate the mounting pressure. White responds with a tactical strike knight from d5 to c7. By moving the knight into c7, White forks the black rook on a8 and exerts tremendous pressure on the 7th rank. It's a classic example of a knight fork, demonstrating how White's coordination and piece activity can lead to immediate material gains or strong positional advantage. White pushes the pawn from f6 to f7, indicating an aggressive intent to promote. This move puts Black under serious pressure, as the pawn is just one square away from becoming a queen. The threat of promotion can tie down Black's pieces, particularly the rook and king, to defensive duties. Black responds by maneuvering the queen from c3 to h3, placing it on a more active diagonal. The queen now threatens along the h-file and may look to create counterplay against White's king or target weak points in white's position, such as the h2 pawn. White plays king from h1 to g1, stepping out of the corner. This subtle king move can be a useful preparatory action, either to sidestep a potential check or to coordinate with rook and pawns for defense or counterplay. It can also anticipate possible threats from black's queen. Black queen slides from h3 to g2, intensifying the pressure and attacking the g2 square, which is adjacent to white's king. This move puts the white king in check and forces white to respond, introducing tactical tension into the position. Black is seeking immediate activity and aiming to disrupt white's coordination. Black plays knight from f6 to d5. This move attacks the bishop on c3 and exerts pressure on the center, challenging white's control of the d4 square. The knight also supports the other knight on e4, making black's central presence quite strong. White responds by capturing the knight with bishop from f3 to d5. This is a straightforward exchange, removing a well-placed and active knight from black's camp. The bishop on d5 momentarily controls the important central square, but also exposes itself to recapture. Black recaptures on d5 with the pawn from c6, solidifying the pawn structure and gaining space in the center. This creates a pawn majority on the queenside and opens possibilities for black to play b5 in the future. The pawn on d5 may also restrict white's central play. White now moves the bishop from d2 to b4. This is a developing move with multiple ideas. It activates the bishop, pinning the knight on d5 to the queen on a7, creating tactical threats. White starts to exert pressure on black's position, especially on the queenside. White plays nd6, jumping the knight deep into black's territory, where it applies tremendous pressure. This move forks two major pieces, the queen on b6 and the rook on c7. Not only does this threaten a material gain, but it also destabilizes black's pawn structure around the king. Tactically, this is a strong move, as black must now deal with the immediate threat posed by the knight. Black responds with qxc3, capturing a pawn and utilizing the queen's presence to simultaneously threaten the white bishop on c1 and maintain central control. By taking on e3, black also sidesteps the fork, saving material and creating counterplay. This move demonstrates the flexibility of the queen and highlights the importance of active piece play in defense. White chooses to move the king to h2, stepping out of any potential danger along the g-file or possible checks. This is a prophylactic move, improving the king's safety while leaving the rook on the f-file and opening possible ideas of later rook lifts or kingside aggression. Small, quiet moves like this often help to consolidate one's position during the middle game. Black plays f7 to e6, capturing white's knight and restoring material balance. This pawn capture also improves black's pawn structure, opening up lines for the c8 bishop and removing a powerful white piece from an aggressive post. By using the f-pawn to take, black also places influence over the d5 square and strengthens the pawn chain on the king side.